My wife plotted to divorce me the moment I won the lottery, but her smile vanished when the court said she gets nothing. A few months ago, I won the lottery, and it was a complete coincidence. I usually don't even buy lottery tickets, but that one time I did, I ended up winning. I thought I had hit the jackpot, but by the end of the week, I didn't feel so lucky anymore because my wife decided to file for divorce literally days later. We were going through a really tough time and had been arguing for months. She had been quite aggressive, and it was becoming very difficult for me to deal with her. The root of all our problems was that her parents had just retired and had been entirely dependent on us financially for the past few years. Both of them were high school teachers, and years before retiring, they made poor investments that caused them to lose a considerable amount of their savings. It's not that they have nothing saved, but it's not enough for them to feel secure. My wife had convinced me to help by sending a large portion of our combined income to her parents each month. Until recently, I was okay with that. We have been together for 5 years and married for 3. During those 3 years, I was fine with it because her parents are good people, but at the beginning of this year, we had our first child, so I wanted to reduce the amount I sent to her parents. Raising a child isn't the cheapest thing in the world. I also thought it was about time we started saving for our own future. It was becoming increasingly difficult to manage our finances while maintaining our lifestyle, caring for a baby, and sending money to her parents. I brought this up a few months ago and suggested that maybe we could cut back a little on the amount we sent. She was outraged at the idea, and we ended up fighting. Later, we made up. But a few weeks later, when I tried to bring it up again, she got furious once more. This had been happening for a while. Each time we'd make up for the sake of our daughter, but this time she took it too far. We were in the middle of an argument when I found out I had won the lottery. Since I was so happy, I decided to tell her, thinking it would cheer us both up and break the ice, but she didn't even bother to acknowledge the good news. She just nodded and went back to what she was doing. That was unexpected, but things were about to get worse. The next day, she told me she was going to visit her parents with our daughter for a while, but she never came back from that visit. I found myself blocked 3 days later when I tried to contact her. A few days later, I received the divorce papers. In the meantime, I tried to visit her at her parents' house, but each time I went, they pretended not to be home. I would ring the doorbell, knock, and call them, making myself look like a complete idiot for several minutes before finally giving up and going home. It wasn't for lack of trying, but she wasn't willing to give me a chance because she had already made up her mind. She decided that for her, the lottery money was more important than fighting for our marriage. In the divorce filing, she made it very clear that she wanted 75% of my lottery winnings as alimony. It was as if everything I had done for her and her family over the years didn't matter at all. I understood what she was after. After receiving the papers, I decided not to fight for her, but to fight against her. She had decided what she wanted to do, and I took a couple of days to talk to some divorce lawyers and chose the most successful one, naturally, the most expensive. At least I was sure he could help me through this. At first, we tried to mediate with a court-appointed mediator, but she was unwilling to negotiate. She and her lawyer made it seem like I owed her something just because we have a daughter together and because she earns less money than I do, as if that were my fault. After a few weeks, we decided to go to court because she was so confident that things would go her way. However, my lawyer and I had prepared well. In just a few hearings, we managed to establish that all her claims about me being emotionally inaccessible and mentally tormenting her were nothing but nonsense she and her lawyer had concocted to turn the situation in her favor and get money she didn't deserve. Once this became clear, presenting the truth of the situation became pretty easy. Now, if the situation tips in my favor, she stands to lose everything she has claimed. The house will be mine, both cars will be mine, and she'll also have to return several pieces of jewelry she received at our wedding because many of them are family heirlooms. Plus, because she doesn't earn significantly less than I do, just a little, the alimony will be less than what she wants. She's currently trying to argue that she needs to help her parents, so at least the alimony should be higher. But my lawyer and I believe that over the past 3 years, we've sent them plenty of money. Each month, it's quite possible that they haven't been able to save any of it, as they probably have, and I'm sure they can now support themselves financially since their savings have likely increased. We still have a few weeks before everything is settled, but my parents want me to settle and give her more alimony just because they feel sorry for my in-laws. I tried to tell them that despite everything I've done for my in-laws, they didn't help me when I tried to win her back. So I don't feel any guilt about all this, and I believe she deserves everything that's coming to her, but they don't agree with me. So I'm the bad guy for taking everything away from my soon-to-be ex-wife, even though she needs to help her parents. The house was a wedding gift from my parents and grandparents, and legally it's in my name. My car is completely mine. I paid for it myself. I also bought her car as a birthday gift last year, but the title is in my name since we never bothered to change it. That's why we're fighting over all this. I bought both cars with my hard-earned money, and the house was a gift from my family, so I don't want her to keep it. I know there's supposed to be gifts and all that, but I don't care about that now. With the jewelry, it's quite clear why I want it back. They are supposed to be family heirlooms, and she is no longer part of the family. As for the lottery winnings, she might get a share if we had been married for a while after winning, but she filed for divorce immediately, and now I don't have to give her anything. She played her cards terribly, and her gold digger attitude might leave her with nothing. It would have been very different had she wanted to fix our marriage. When it comes to child support, we won't fight over that. Our daughter isn't responsible for what my wife did. Update 1, I've talked to my parents. It's been a few days since my post, and I told them I didn't like how soft they were being because the one who has had to go through all this is me. I told them I didn't like that they tried to make me feel guilty for standing up for myself. It's not like I didn't give her a chance, but she got greedy, wanted it all, and was even willing to paint me as the villain in court just because she wanted 75% of my winnings, something she didn't even deserve. I asked them to try to see the situation from my perspective, and they would understand how terrible it felt and why I was doing all this. They told me they empathize with me, and that's why they hadn't said anything about the house, the cars, or the jewelry, only about the alimony. They tried to tell me that I had a child with this woman, so I should at least forgive her for that and be a little more lenient, but I reminded them that she was already receiving child support, which was for our daughter, so I didn't have to think about that part. Even so, they didn't seem very satisfied, so I decided to have a proper talk with them about it. I told them exactly how terrible I had been feeling about everything over the past few months, how we had been fighting so often, but despite everything, I always tried to make it work. I never thought I would leave her because I loved her so much. But for her, all it took was for me to win the lottery. I told them she literally left the next day and then stopped responding to me. Even now, the only time we interact is when she drops off our daughter on the weekends, and I know that's just a formality because she doesn't want to paint herself as the bad one in court. She hasn't even had the decency to look me in the eye and give me an explanation after all those years together. I think that's quite hurtful and disrespectful, especially considering that I did so much for her parents. Even they turned their backs on me when it came time to help. They didn't send her back nor tell her that she should try to work things out with me instead of leaving and trying to take all my money. They actually supported her through all of this. So why should I have any pity for them? While talking to my parents, I accidentally ended up crying a little because for so many weeks I had been holding it all in. Saying it out loud made me realize how painful this all was. When I started crying, my parents immediately began to comfort me, telling me they hadn't been thinking clearly and didn't want to hurt me like that. They admitted I was right. After that, I felt lighter. Talking about things really helped me. Honestly, I hadn't discussed this for quite some time. It's not that my friends didn't know. They did. But I was trying not to mention it too much because I didn't want this to become my whole personality until it was over. I was just trying to keep myself busy so I wouldn't think about it too much. Talking about it meant thinking about it, and everything hurt. I didn't even want to bring it up with my parents, and of course, I couldn't talk to my daughter about it. So I was holding everything inside of me, trying not to think about it. But I guess that took its toll. The truth is that for as much as I want to hate her at this moment, it's impossible because I once loved her, and that wasn't that long ago. It feels like forever has passed, but I know for sure it hasn't. Every time I think about the divorce and how ugly everything has become, I just want to shut my brain off and never think about it again. Unfortunately, this is the reality, and I can't run away from it. All I can do is face it, and that's what I've been trying to do. But it's hard. I guess my parents telling me that what I was doing wasn't right was the last straw for me because that was the last thing I needed. Still, I'm glad I talked to them because I really needed support at this time. Had I decided not to talk to them and just cut them off over this, I probably would have regretted it. We were able to talk it out, and they apologized for stressing me out. They told me they were there for me always, and that was really helpful. They just needed to know all the details. At this point, I have no idea what's going to happen in court, what the decision will be, and if I'll even get what I want, even though things seem to be in my favor. We can never be 100% sure until it's all over. I'm very stressed about that right now. I know my lawyer is quite good, but despite that, I can't wait to hear the verdict. All of this is playing with my mind, and as long as the proceedings continue, I don't think I can forget that all of this is happening. Update 2. It's been a few weeks since my last update, and we had another hearing yesterday. It went pretty well, but my wife and her lawyer managed to extend it for another week. However, we're getting closer to the end, and I'm quite sure they won't be able to stretch it any further. Anyway, she came over in the afternoon to drop off our daughter as usual, and I thought she'd leave as soon as our daughter was with me. But this time, she started sticking around longer. I felt compelled to ask her if there was anything she wanted to say. It was really cold and awkward, but I knew she wanted to tell me something. She told me she would love to come inside and chat with me about everything that was going on. Luckily, our daughter was already asleep, so I laid her in her crib, and we started talking. She started by apologizing for everything, and then said she was there to try to negotiate with me in person. Apparently, she had been losing feelings for me for a while due to how much we had been fighting. When I told her about the lottery, she became even more upset. She expected me to say we could stop fighting now because we would have enough money, and I wouldn't have to complain about the money I was sending to her parents. But I didn't say any of that, and throughout that night, she just grew more and more angry with me. The next morning, she had already made a decision about what she was going to do, and that's exactly what she did. But now she thinks it was a huge mistake and wanted to tell me that she didn't deserve any of what happened. She acknowledged that she had messed up, said she had been acting selfishly, and admitted she was quite cruel about the whole situation. She said she wouldn't blame me if I didn't want to think about her or her parents at all. Still, she wanted to take the risk and try to get me to consider increasing the amount of alimony. She explained that it would be very helpful for her and her parents. She had already been losing a lot of money covering her lawyer's costs, and after this, she'd have to live with her parents permanently. She would probably also need to buy a new car, so she already had a lot of financial worries about the future. I told her immediately that none of this would be happening if she hadn't acted the way she did in the first place. Unfortunately, that's how things turned out, and at this moment, I have no sympathy for her or her parents, just as they didn't think of me when they blocked me before the divorce. The most I could do for her was tell her that things would get better, but apart from that, I wasn't going to change anything. I thought she was going to argue with me, but instead, she just started crying, saying we had spent so many years together, and it's incredible that our relationship is ending this way. I couldn't tell if those tears were real or crocodile tears, but I didn't want to be insensitive, so I stayed silent. I didn't even try to console her because I had already shed my share of tears, and nobody was there to comfort me except for my family and friends. So I let her cry for a couple of minutes. Then she told me that if it wasn't for her and her parents, I should at least think about our daughter together, and that's why I should increase the alimony. I told her that I was already sending child support for our daughter, and that I didn't think I needed to do anything more. She tried to argue that it wasn't a significant amount, and I replied that it wasn't my problem because that's what was agreed upon. Also, I pointed out that she makes just a little less than I do, so it's strange to expect me to cover everything, especially when she can maintain her lifestyle on her own with the child support I would provide. What really bothers her is not getting the 75% of my winnings like she planned, and that she won't be able to live the lifestyle she wanted. Instead, she'll have to settle for what she has been accustomed to all along, and that's her real issue. I told her this to her face without holding back, because she was really starting to annoy me. She told me I was being disgusting, and that I hadn't been like that at all before, so I should stop being unpleasant. Things got pretty tense after that. She added that she regretted even trying to come negotiate with me in person just because her lawyer suggested it. She said I would always be the same miserly jerk and that nothing would change. She ended up saying she was glad we were getting divorced. I didn't bother arguing with her, so she left, still cursing. This gave me more reason to go along with my initial plan. Her apologies were just to manipulate me and gain more money. Throughout our marriage, that's exactly what she had been doing. The only time I tried to reason with her, she couldn't even handle it. I will never forget that the only reason I suggested reducing the amount sent to her parents each month was for the sake of our daughter. She got offended by that. And I don't think I should forget it, because it shows it wasn't my fault. Even today, I thought she was going to soften me when she started crying, but that lasted only a few seconds. I reminded myself of everything I had done, and all guilt went out the window. I know she was trying to take advantage of the fact that she thinks I still have a soft spot for her. I wish I could say that after all this divorce is done, I will be done with her. Unfortunately, we still have our daughter together, and since we've decided to raise her jointly, I'll have to see her every weekend when she comes to drop her off. It will be difficult and awkward at first, but I'm sure we will get used to it. Honestly, I just hope my daughter is a little older so I won't have to wait until the weekend to see her. When she's older, I plan to modify the agreement and make sure she spends half the week with me, not just the weekends. However, that's a long way off, so I guess I'll have to come to terms with how things are now. Anyway, I have my daughter with me right now, and I feel a bit upset because I won't be able to give her the life I had planned before she was born. I thought we would have a complete family, but all that fell apart as soon as I received the divorce papers. Still, I will try to give her the best life I can, and I will make sure her mother never tries to turn her against me or use her against me. Update 3. I know I've been inactive for a couple of weeks, but it was the last phase of the divorce process, and I also had a lot of work to catch up on, so I've been pretty busy. I wish I could have posted earlier anyway. The bottom line is that I managed to get the divorce resolved on my terms, and now we are officially divorced. We are both completely free to move on with our lives. After everything ended, she didn't talk to me or seem very happy about it, which was to be expected. Surprisingly, my in-laws reached out to me later, sending me a text saying that although my relationship with their daughter had ended, they would still love to be a part of my life and wanted to invite me to dinner. I knew this was a manipulation tactic, so I politely declined, stating that I didn't want to intrude on their family, especially because everything related to the divorce was still quite fresh. I also know that my ex-wife is living with them, so I didn't want to make things awkward by being there. They insisted, but I kept declining because regardless of how they were acting now, I wasn't going to forget how they turned their backs on me when I really needed their help. They pretended not to be home when I tried to talk to my wife to work things out. I will never forget that, and I will not forgive them for it. So I declined to see them, and that was that. After that, the only time my ex-wife and I have interacted has been when she comes to drop off our daughter on the weekends. I feel relieved because I would hate for it to get awkward. I really am still very sensitive, but I'm trying to move on. Of course, I'm not dating anyone. That's far from happening now, but I'm doing everything else to keep myself distracted and feel better about my life. Even work has been going pretty well, so I guess I can finally have a fresh start. The lottery winnings will also be credited in just a couple of weeks, and that money can change a lot. We're not talking about an incredible amount. It's not that kind of prize, but it will make my life and my daughter's life much easier. Update 4. 2 years have passed since my last update, and things have improved a lot. Life has been great at work, and after receiving the lottery winnings, I decided to set them aside completely for my daughter's future. I don't plan to touch it unless there's some kind of emergency. Speaking of my daughter, I'm happy to share that I will be spending more time with her. I'm finally modifying the custody agreement, and there are no issues with her mom. I think this new plan works for her too. My daughter will now spend half the week with me and the other half with her mom. Besides, I won't have to pay alimony anymore because my ex-wife is going to remarry. That's right. I found out through some mutual friends that she got engaged a few weeks ago. It had all been very discreet, but they finally announced it on Instagram earlier this week. Apparently, they've only been together a few months, so it feels a bit rushed to me. I'm a bit concerned because this man will also be a part of my daughter's life. I decided to talk to her about it. We have rarely talked in the last 2 years, but I felt this was necessary. It was awkward, but she assured me that he is a good guy. I just told her I wanted to meet him in person for the sake of our daughter. She invited me to dinner, and I have to admit, he seemed like a decent guy. That was all I needed to know, so I wished them luck for the future. I know I won't be at the wedding, and I don't want to be there. I just wanted to meet him to ensure everything seemed right for my daughter's sake. Honestly, I'm happy for her. I'm glad she's moving on with someone else who makes her happy, whether it's financially or otherwise. As for me, I'm doing quite well. My life isn't bad at all, and I'm genuinely grateful for how far I've come. Update 5. I agree with many of you who believe my ex-wife just wants a better life for herself and her parents, a life that depends on a man who has enough money for that. That's what she tried to do with her ex-husband. I think she wanted to recreate what she had with me, but she found out sooner than expected, and now she's divorcing him as well. Her marriage only lasted a year. I don't know the details because I don't have that kind of relationship with either him or my ex-wife, but my daughter has told me they fought a lot over money, and some mutual friends have confirmed that. The most outrageous thing to me is that she discovered that the money I won is being used for my daughter. That's why she now wants a share of it. I'll elaborate on this later. I have already set up a fund for my daughter, and it will cover her education if she decides to study and gets a degree. Another part of the fund will be released so she can buy a house. I think it has been the right decision not to spoil her too much or let her think she has a right to my money. The idea is to encourage her to work hard and get a degree in something valuable. I don't care if she studies medicine, law, or education. But there's a clause in the fund that stipulates that I have the final say on the funds. She can't just go to college and get the first easy degree she finds. She has to put in effort to achieve something worthwhile. My ex wants me to include her in the fund too, just in case something happens to me, which honestly didn't sit well when I heard it coming from someone who seems willing to do anything for money. I'm not going to change the conditions, especially not for my ex. Even if something were to happen to me, let's hope not, or at least I hope not. I've taken several measures with my lawyer to ensure the money is being used correctly. I'll just say, it's time for my ex-wife to stop thinking she can get her hands on that money. She needs to drop that idea. It's exclusively for my daughter. It has enough conditions to guarantee it won't help her mother or her maternal grandparents. Now I want to share that I've met someone, and I think that's what was missing in my life. I feel it's been a good amount of time to start dating again, and with this person, we've really connected. No, she's not with me for the money. We haven't even reached the point of discussing that. Besides, at this point, that money won't be hers if we marry. No matter what happens, the money will be solely for my daughter.